The year was 1898, a time when industry boomed, fortunes were made overnight, and society thrived on opulence and spectacle. Among the wealthy elite of New York City was the enigmatic Elias Whitmore, a man known as much for his charm as for his shadowy dealings. To the public, Elias was a brilliant entrepreneur, his fortune built on textiles and shipping. Yet those who dared to look beyond the surface whispered of another side to his success, one built on illegal trades and audacious thefts. Elias Whitmore's foray into crime began not out of greed but necessity. His once prosperous family, descended from British nobility, had fallen into ruin during his youth. By the time he came of age, there was little left of the Whitmore name except a tarnished legacy and a crumbling mansion on the outskirts of Manhattan. Determined to restore his family's former glory, Elias turned to what he knew best: cunning, deception, and risk. It started small: stolen artifacts from lesser-known collectors, pawned off discreetly to fund his more legitimate ventures. But as Elias grew bolder, so did his ambitions. His first major heist, the Blythe Ruby affair, became the stuff of legend. The ruby, a rare and priceless gem belonging to a French duchess, was thought to be untouchable, locked away in a private vault in Paris. How Elias infiltrated the estate, bypassed the guards, and vanished without a trace was a mystery that baffled authorities for years. That theft marked the birth of what would become a generational saga, a tale of brilliance, deception, and danger. With the success of the Blythe Ruby heist, Elias not only restored his family's wealth but also created a foundation for a life of crime disguised beneath the veneer of wealth and respectability. The family's hidden code. From the outset, Elias imposed strict rules on himself and later his descendants. He believed that crime, like business, required discipline and order. This led to the creation of the Whitmore Code, a set of principles that would guide the family for generations. Family, above all. Loyalty to the Whitmore name and legacy is paramount. Never get caught. No matter the cost, no member of the family may allow themselves to be captured. Leave. No trace. Every heist must be planned with precision, leaving nothing behind that could link back to the family. No outsiders. The family's secrets are sacred. Trust no one outside the bloodline. This code became the bedrock of the Whitmore family's criminal empire. Each generation was carefully groomed, taught not only the skills of theft and deception, but also the importance of secrecy and loyalty. Victor Whitmore, a master of shadows. Elias's only son, Victor Whitmore, inherited more than his father's wealth. He inherited his brilliance and audacity. Where Elias had been a pioneer, Victor became a master. Known for his meticulous nature and unbreakable calm, Victor took the Whitmore legacy to new heights. Victor's exploits began in his early 20s, when he orchestrated the theft of the Sapphire Star, a gem displayed at a high-profile gala in London. Disguised as a French diplomat, Victor charmed his way past the guards, memorized the layout of the venue, and executed a flawless heist in less than an hour. By the time anyone noticed the gem was missing, Victor was already back in his hotel room, preparing for his next move. Unlike his father, who operated largely alone, Victor understood the value of teamwork. He recruited a small, trusted group of accomplices, each an expert in their field: lockpicking, forging, and reconnaissance. Together, they formed what would later be known as the Whitmore Circle, a tight-knit unit that operated with military precision. One of Victor's boldest moves was the Crown of Czars heist, a daring operation that targeted a heavily guarded exhibit in Moscow. The crown, encrusted with diamonds and emeralds, was a symbol of Russia's imperial past. Stealing it was considered impossible. not only because of the tight security, but also due to the political implications. Yet Victor, undeterred by the risks, devised a plan so elaborate it bordered on genius. Posing as an American historian with ties to the U.S. Embassy, Victor gained access to the exhibit under the guise of conducting research. Over the course of 2 weeks, he meticulously studied the guards' routines, the building's architecture, and the security measures in place. On the night of the heist, he and his team executed their plan flawlessly, replacing the crown with a near-perfect replica. By the time the authorities realized the theft, Victor was already halfway across Europe. Secrets passed down. Despite his success, Victor understood that no empire lasts forever. As he grew older, he turned his attention to his children, Charlotte and Julian, determined to pass on the family's legacy. From a young age, the siblings were trained in the arts of deception and theft, learning everything from lockpicking and safecracking to digital hacking and high-stakes negotiation. But unlike previous generations, Charlotte and Julian were growing up in a new era, an era where technology ruled, and the old ways of crime were no longer enough. They knew that if the Whitmore legacy was to survive, they would need to adapt. And so, they began to innovate, blending traditional methods with modern technology to create a new breed of heist, one that left no physical trace and no digital footprint. Their first major operation, the Venetian Emerald Affair, marked the dawn of a new chapter in the Whitmore saga. The target was a billionaire's private yacht where a secret auction of rare gems was being held. Using a combination of hacking, social engineering, and old-fashioned stealth, Charlotte and Julian infiltrated the yacht, disabled its security systems, and made off with over $50 million worth of jewels. As a final touch, they left behind a calling card, a single black feather, a symbol that would soon become infamous. A growing shadow. Unbeknownst to the Whitmores, however, their growing infamy was attracting attention, not just from law enforcement, but from rivals and enemies they had long thought buried. In the shadows, forces were beginning to gather, determined to bring down the Whitmore empire once and for all. As Charlotte and Julian prepared for their next heist, they could sense the danger lurking just beyond the horizon. But for the Whitmores, danger was nothing new. It was simply another part of the game. And this time, they were determined to win. The Whitmore family had always operated in the gray area between wealth and crime. But as the decades passed, their operations became harder to conceal. Modern surveillance, international law enforcement cooperation, and digital footprints were challenges that previous generations never had to face. Despite these hurdles, Charlotte and Julian continued to thrive, using their technological prowess and refined skill sets to stay ahead of their pursuers. Yet even with their meticulous planning, cracks in their once impenetrable shield began to form. An unexpected ally. The Venetian Emerald Affair marked a turning point for the Whitmores. News of the heist spread like wildfire, and the calling card they left behind, the black feather, became a symbol of both fear and fascination. International law enforcement agencies formed a joint task force known as Interlock, dedicated to capturing the elusive Whitmores. Leading the task force was Inspector Henry Carlisle, a brilliant investigator with a personal vendetta against the family. Carlisle's obsession with the Whitmores stemmed from a failed case years earlier, when Victor Whitmore had evaded capture during the Crown of Czars heist. Carlisle had been humiliated, his career nearly destroyed by the debacle. Now, with Charlotte and Julian continuing their father's legacy, he saw a chance for redemption. But as the net tightened, an unlikely ally emerged: Eleanor Grant, a former art thief turned informant. Eleanor had crossed paths with Victor Whitmore in her younger years and owed him a debt she could never repay. Though she had left the world of crime behind, she still had connections in the underworld. She approached Charlotte with a proposition: information in exchange for protection. Initially skeptical, Charlotte agreed to meet Eleanor in a dimly lit cafe in Barcelona. As the two women spoke in hushed tones, Eleanor revealed that Interlock had obtained crucial intelligence about the Whitmore family's past operations. More troubling, there were whispers of a rival syndicate, one with its sights set on destroying the Whitmores, not for justice, but for revenge. The rival syndicate. The Black Thorn. The Black Thorn, a shadowy organization with roots in Europe's criminal underworld, had a long-standing grudge against the Whitmores. Decades earlier, during one of Victor's heists, a confrontation had resulted in the death of the Blackthorn's founder, Marcus Renard. Though Victor had always maintained that it was self-defense, the Renard family never forgave the Whitmores. Now, led by Marcus's son, Lucian Renard, the Blackthorn had resurfaced with one goal: to eliminate the Whitmores and seize their empire. Lucian was a ruthless tactician, known for his brutal methods and unyielding pursuit of vengeance. Unlike law enforcement, he had no interest in arresting the Whitmores. He wanted them destroyed. The Whitmores found themselves caught between two formidable enemies: Interlock, with its vast resources and legal authority, and the Blackthorn, with its deadly reach and personal vendetta. A dangerous game. Charlotte and Julian knew they couldn't afford to be reactive. They had to strike first. With Eleanor's help, they devised a plan to outmaneuver both Interlock and the Blackthorn. Their strategy involved three key steps. Decoy heist. A high-profile fake heist designed to draw Interlock's attention away from their real target. Disruption. Sabotaging the Blackthorn's operations by exposing their criminal dealings to rival syndicates. The final score. A legendary heist that would secure enough wealth and leverage to allow the Whitmores to disappear forever. The first step was set in motion in Monaco, during a prestigious gala attended by some of the world's wealthiest elites. The decoy heist was designed to be a spectacle: flashy, public, and impossible to ignore. Posing as socialites, Charlotte and Julian mingled with the guests, while their team planted evidence pointing to a fictitious plot to steal the royal blue diamond. As expected, the plan worked perfectly. Carlyle and his team at Interlock scrambled to secure the venue, diverting their attention from the Whitmores' true objective: a hidden cache of priceless artifacts smuggled out of Eastern Europe during World War II, now stored in a private collection in Vienna. A close call. The Vienna operation was supposed to be simple: get in, retrieve the artifacts, and get out. But as Charlotte and Julian infiltrated the heavily guarded mansion, they discovered something they hadn't anticipated. Lucien Renard himself was already there, leading a team from the Blackthorn. What followed was a tense game of cat and mouse as the siblings navigated the labyrinthine corridors, avoiding both the guards and Renard's men. At one point, Julian narrowly escaped detection by hiding in a wine cellar, while Charlotte used her hacking skills to disable the mansion's alarm system. Just as they were about to escape with the artifacts, they were confronted by Lucian. "You've taken everything from my family," he hissed, his gun trained on Julian. "Now, it's my turn." Before Lucian could pull the trigger, Eleanor appeared, having followed them to Vienna to ensure their safety. With a swift, calculated move, she disarmed Lucian, allowing the siblings to escape. As they fled into the night, they knew that the Blackthorn wouldn't give up so easily. The game was far from over. The plan unfolds. Back in their safe house, Charlotte and Julian reviewed the events of the night. Though they had succeeded in retrieving the artifacts, it was clear that the stakes had risen. Interlock was closing in. The Blackthorn was more dangerous than ever, and their once certain path to freedom now seemed fraught with peril. Yet amidst the chaos, Charlotte couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. The Whitmores had always thrived under pressure, and this time would be no different. They had a plan, they had each other, and they had one final heist to pull off. A heist that would determine the future of their family forever. Charlotte and Julian knew this was it. The heist that would either secure their freedom or end the Whitmore family legacy for good. Every detail had to be flawless. If Interlock or the Black Thorn caught wind of their plan, there would be no escape. Their target was the Astoria Vault, a private underground depository beneath a historic bank in Zurich. Hidden within its fortified walls was not only a fortune in jewels and rare artifacts, but also something far more valuable, a ledger detailing decades of illegal transactions conducted by the world's wealthiest and most powerful individuals. With this ledger, the Whitmores could leverage their way out of danger and vanish forever. Setting the stage. The first step was assembling a crew. Though Charlotte and Julian had always operated with a small, trusted circle, this heist required expertise beyond their usual team. They reached out to their contacts in the underworld, carefully selecting only those who could be trusted, and who had a reason to hate the Black Thorn or Interlock. Among the recruits were Marcus Lynn, a brilliant engineer specializing in vault systems, Elena Moretti, a world-class forger, and Damian Cross, a former intelligence operative turned mercenary. Each had their own motivations, but one thing united them: the promise of freedom and fortune. As the crew gathered in a secluded chalet in the Swiss Alps, Charlotte laid out the plan. "We're not just stealing jewels," she explained. "We're stealing power, and with power, we buy our freedom." The heist begins. The Astoria Vault was infamous for its state-of-the-art security system, biometric scanners, pressure-sensitive floors, and a digital monitoring network guarded by elite private forces. Getting in required more than just skill, it required perfect timing. Charlotte and Julian took on the roles of a wealthy heiress and her financial advisor, gaining access to the bank's upper levels under the guise of opening a new account. Meanwhile, Marcus and Damian infiltrated the basement level disguised as maintenance workers, using custom-built tools to disable the pressure sensors. Elena, stationed in a van outside, monitored the security feed, feeding false data to the guards to create a window of opportunity. Everything was going according to plan until the unexpected happened. A betrayal uncovered. As Marcus worked on bypassing the final lock, he noticed something odd. "The system's been tampered with," he whispered into his comms. "Someone's already been here." Before anyone could react, an alarm blared throughout the bank. Interlock had arrived, led by none other than Inspector Carlyle, who had somehow anticipated their move. But that wasn't the worst of it. Lucien Renard and the Black Thorn were also closing in, their men armed and ready to strike. "We've been set up," Julian growled. "Someone tipped them off." Eleanor's voice crackled over the comms. "You've got to move, now. There's another exit in the West Wing. I'll guide you." With no time to lose, the crew split up. Charlotte and Julian led the charge toward the West Wing, while Marcus and Damian stayed behind to create a diversion. Explosions rocked the building as the two teams worked in tandem, buying precious seconds to escape. The final confrontation. As they neared the exit, Charlotte and Julian found themselves cornered by Lucien Renard. "This ends here," Lucien snarled, his eyes cold with rage. "You can't outrun your past." Charlotte, calm despite the tension, stepped forward. "We don't need to outrun it. We've already won." Before Lucien could respond, a sudden explosion shook the ground. Smoke filled the corridor as Damian and Marcus reappeared, having rigged the vault's foundation with charges. In the chaos, the Whitmores slipped through a hidden passage, emerging into the cold night air. Outside, Eleanor was waiting with a getaway car. As they sped away, the bank behind them crumbled, burying any evidence of their presence, and the ledger beneath tons of rubble. A new beginning days later, the Whitmores regrouped in a remote hideout. Though the ledger was lost, they had managed to recover enough jewels and artifacts to secure their future. More importantly, they had survived, outsmarting both Interlock and the Black Thorn. Inspector Carlyle, though furious at their escape, was forced to admit defeat. Without evidence, he had no case. Lucien Renard, however, was not so easily deterred. Though his plans had been thwarted, he vowed to continue hunting the Whitmores. Charlotte and Julian knew they couldn't remain in hiding forever, but for now they had a moment of peace, a chance to reflect on what they had achieved. "I guess this is it," Julian said as they gazed out over the mountain range. "The end of the Whitmore legacy." Charlotte smiled faintly. "Not the end. Just a new chapter." As dawn broke over the horizon, the Whitmores prepared to disappear once more, ready for whatever lay ahead. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more stories like this, hit that like button and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And let me know on which topic you would like to see stories next. And check out these other stories you might enjoy. See you in the next one. Till then, take care and goodbye.